The yellow HOA envelope slapped against my ranch gate while the cattle were still moving through the fog. 3 days after I bought 47 acres outside Stone Creek HOA, they were demanding $4,860 in back dues on land they did not own, did not maintain, and did not legally control. The notice listed my private access road as a community easement, which meant they were not just coming for my mailbox. They were reaching for the only gravel road my neighbors used to reach 2 farms, a feed delivery route, and the emergency gate I had the county permit to operate. Then I saw the bold line at the bottom, failure to pay may result in gate restriction. That was their first real mistake. My thumb pressed into the paper hard enough to crease it. The ink smelled fresh. The morning smelled like wet hay, diesel, and dust. Somewhere beyond the fence, a golf cart motor whined like an insect. I looked up and saw a white cart rolling toward my gate, 2 HOA flags clipped to the front like they belonged there. A woman in a cream blazer stopped on the other side of the cattle guard and held up a clipboard. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, smiling without warmth. "We need to get your account corrected before this becomes unpleasant. My name is Ethan Caldwell. I am 38, a civil site contractor, and I bought that ranch because the deed said one clean sentence in black ink: no HOA encumbrance. No dues. No architectural committee. No private board telling me what color a barn could be. I had spent 12 years building roads, drainage systems, culverts, gates, and utility crossings for people who only cared about paperwork after something flooded or failed. So when Diane Whitaker showed up pretending her clipboard had more authority than my recorded deed, I did not yell. I opened the gate halfway. The hinges groaned in the cold. "Show me the recorded document," I said. Her smile twitched. "Everyone along this corridor contributes." She tapped the notice with one red fingernail. "Stone Creek maintains standards." Behind her, a black pickup slowed near the road. The driver watched us but did not stop. That told me this was not a billing mistake. People already knew about it. Diane leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Most owners pay before liens are necessary." The word lien hung in the air between us. It was too polished. Too ready. I glanced at the notice again. The property ID was real. The parcel number was mine. Someone had entered my ranch into their system before I ever unpacked the first box. A gust pushed dust across her shoes. She looked down at the dirt like it had insulted her. I asked again, slower this time. "What legal instrument gives your HOA authority over my ranch?" The clipboard shifted against her chest. For the first time, she looked past me toward the steel keypad beside the gate, the county inspection sticker on the post, and the buried control box I had installed for emergency access. She had noticed the system. She just did not understand who controlled it. "Our attorney will send whatever you need," she said. Then she slid a second paper through the gate. It was not a bill. It was a warning about restricted access, nuisance use, and non-compliant rural operations. My cattle moved behind me, hooves soft in the mud. The ranch went quiet except for the electric hum inside the gate box. Diane climbed back into her cart and turned around like the matter was finished. But she had put her threat in writing. And she had tied it to a road she could not touch. By noon, I was driving to the county recorder. The county recorder's office smelled like paper, old carpet, and burnt coffee. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead while I slid my deed and the HOA notice across the counter. The clerk looked at both documents without saying anything at first. Then she adjusted her glasses and typed my parcel number. Her keyboard clicked for almost 30 seconds. Too long for a simple lookup. She leaned closer to the screen. Then she frowned. "That is strange." She turned the monitor slightly. My parcel appeared in 2 places. One record showed my ranch exactly where it belonged. The second record showed the same parcel listed inside a private association database attachment filed months earlier. Not recorded. Not approved. Just attached. I asked her to print everything. The printer started spitting out pages. The sound filled the room. The clerk lowered her voice. You are not the first person asking about Stone Creek this year. That sentence landed harder than I expected. She pulled another folder from beneath the counter. Not official records. Public requests. 3 names. 3 rural properties outside the subdivision boundary. Same pattern. Billing notices. Maintenance fees. Threats. 1 owner paid. 1 settled. 1 sold. I felt the paper edges against my fingertips. Cold. Dry. Too organized to be random. I asked who submitted the attachment. She clicked again. Stone Creek Community Association. Filed through a private management office. No county authorization. No boundary amendment. No signed owner consent attached. The clerk stopped talking after that. Not because she was hiding something. Because she had already said enough. I stepped outside carrying the copies in a thick stack under my arm. The afternoon sun hit hard. My truck was coated in ranch dust. As I opened the door, I noticed something under the wiper blade. Another envelope. Clean white. No stamp. Inside was a 1-page notice. Community Access Review. Effective immediately, road usage and emergency access privileges may be re-evaluated for non-compliant properties. My jaw tightened. They moved fast. Too fast. I looked across the street. A silver SUV sat parked under an oak tree. Engine off. Driver inside. Watching. When I started my truck, it pulled away. Slow. No hurry. Like they wanted me to notice. I drove back to the ranch with the windows down. Dry grass smell. Heat coming off the road. Halfway there, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Diane's voice came through clear and calm. Mr. Caldwell, I heard you visited county records today. I looked at the dashboard clock. She should not have known that. She continued before I spoke. You are making this more complicated than it needs to be. I asked her one question. Did your board file my parcel into your system before I bought this land? Silence. Just road noise. Then she said, you should check your gate before sunset. She hung up. I pressed harder on the gas. When my ranch entrance came into view, my cattle were standing still. And something new was hanging on my gate. The thing hanging on my gate was not a lock. It was a laminated sign. Private community access subject to review. Stone Creek HOA. The corners were still warm from the laminator. Someone had put it up less than an hour ago. My cattle stayed clustered 20 yards back instead of moving toward the feeder. Animals notice tension before people do. I parked and walked to the entrance. No damage. No chain. But there was something else. A bright orange survey flag pushed into the gravel beside my keypad post. Then another. Then another. 6 markers in a straight line running along my access road. I crouched and pulled one out. Tiny black print. Preliminary corridor evaluation. My jaw tightened. Corridor. Not driveway. Not private road. Corridor meant someone was trying to describe my property like shared infrastructure. The evening air smelled like cedar dust and hot metal. I unlocked the control panel beside the gate and opened the inspection compartment. Nothing inside had been touched. Backup battery. County access relay. Emergency override. All normal. But there were fingerprints in the dust around the lower housing. Fresh ones. Someone had opened the outer cover and looked around. I stood up and looked down the road. A county ambulance used this entrance during wildfire season. Feed trucks came through twice a month. One retired couple farther west depended on this route when rain washed out the old crossing. Suddenly the language in the notice made sense. They were not threatening me personally. They were acting like my gate belonged inside their system. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. This time it was a text. No greeting. Just a PDF attachment in one sentence. Standard Integration Agreement. Please sign to avoid unnecessary enforcement. I opened it. 4 pages. Clean formatting. HOA logo. Signature line. Buried halfway down was one sentence that slowed my breathing. Owner acknowledges participation in roadway management and community access compliance. Participation. Not membership. Cleaner wording. Harder to challenge later. I kept reading. Annual dues. Maintenance assessments. Administrative authority. Nothing mentioned. Ownership changes. Nothing mentioned county approval. Then I saw it. Attached exhibit pending final record update. Pending. They had not finished whatever they started. I printed the PDF inside the ranch office and spread every page across the desk. The room smelled like cardboard boxes and fresh plywood because I had barely moved in. My laptop sat beside the county copies from earlier. Same parcel number. Same language pattern. Somebody had built a parallel paper trail around my land. I zoomed in on the footer. Small gray text. Prepared by Whitaker Land Services. Not Stone Creek HOA. My eyes stayed on that name for several seconds. Diane had never introduced herself as anything except HOA president. Outside, tires crunched slowly on gravel. Headlights swept across the barn windows and stopped. Then my gate intercom lit up for the first time since I moved in. The intercom speaker cracked once and then filled with soft static. I pressed the talk button and looked through the camera feed. Diane stood outside the gate again, but this time she was not alone. A man in a navy polo stood beside her holding a rolled set of plans under one arm. Behind them sat a white SUV with magnetic door signs. Whitaker Land Services. Diane smiled into the camera like she had been invited. Good evening, Ethan. We wanted to discuss the corridor integration process before things become inconvenient. I stayed inside the office and left the gate closed. The speaker made my voice sound flatter than I felt. You have 30 seconds. The man stepped forward. Mid-50s. Survey boots. Clean clipboard. He held up a page to the camera. We identified opportunities to improve emergency access and standardize roadway administration. I looked at the plans. Red lines. My road. My gate. My entrance. Drawn like someone had already made decisions. I asked one question. Who authorized site evaluation? He glanced at Diane before answering. That pause told me more than his words. Preliminary assessment only. I switched camera angles and zoomed in. No county seal. No permit reference. No file number. Just a title block with Whitaker Land Services at the bottom. Diane stepped closer. You are making this harder than necessary. The previous owners nearby understood community cooperation. Previous owners nearby. Not my parcel. Not my road. She was speaking around the issue again. I leaned against the desk and watched her through the monitor. Do not place markers on my property again. Her smile disappeared for half a second. Then she recovered. Those are temporary visual references. I reached into the control panel software and opened the access log. Every gate event was recorded. Date. Time. External activity. Service access. I scrolled back. My gate had registered 2 manual inspection attempts the day before I even closed on the ranch. I checked again. Same result. Someone had physically triggered the housing before ownership transferred. I looked at the timestamps. Same week the HOA attachment appeared in county records. Outside, the survey guy shifted his weight. Diane kept talking. If you refuse integration, maintenance decisions affecting shared routes may proceed without your input. Shared routes. Again. They kept trying to redefine the road with language instead of ownership. I pressed the intercom. You keep using the word shared. Silence. The survey guy looked away. Diane folded her arms. Because roads create responsibility. I looked at the county permit mounted beside the monitor. My permit number. My emergency access authorization. My maintenance agreement. Signed months before listing. The county had delegated road maintenance to the parcel owner. Me. Not HOA. Not management. Me. I said one sentence. Email me every document supporting your authority. Diane nodded too quickly. Of course. She turned and walked back toward the SUV. The survey guy followed without looking at me again. Their headlights swept across the pasture and disappeared. 10 minutes later, an email arrived. 6 attachments. 1 subject line. Urgent corrective action required. Then I noticed who copied themselves on the message. The copied recipients were what stopped me. Diane had copied the HOA board. Expected. She copied Whitaker Land Services. Expected. Then one more line. Stone Creek Infrastructure Transition Committee. I had never heard that name before. No website. No logo. No county department. Just an email chain with 6 people acting like they already controlled land they did not own. I opened the attachments one by one. The first was a maintenance framework. Generic language. The second was a route standardization proposal. More polished wording. The third made me sit down. It was a color map. My ranch entrance was highlighted in blue. Neighboring properties in gray. Across the top it said Proposed Community Access Expansion Phase 2. Expansion. That word changed everything. They were not trying to collect fees. They were building territory. I zoomed in. Small labels sat across nearby parcels. Integrated. Pending. Under review. One parcel looked familiar. The retired couple west of me. Another belonged to a cattle operation farther south. I grabbed my phone and made 2 calls. No answer on the first. The second picked up after 4 rings. An older man answered with a tired voice. I introduced myself and asked one question. Did Stone Creek ever ask to manage your road access? Silence. Then a slow exhale. They told us it would help emergency response. He laughed once without humor. Then they started billing us. My eyes stayed on the screen. He told me they paid for 6 months before realizing nothing had changed. No road work. No maintenance. Just notices. Then the invoices stopped after they sold 10 acres near the entrance. I asked who bought it. He did not know. He only remembered a consulting company handled paperwork. I thanked him and ended the call. The room had gone dark except for my desk lamp. Moths tapped softly against the office window. I opened county maps beside the HOA documents. Parcel boundaries. Utility easements. Fire access overlays. I lined them up. Same scale. Same orientation. My stomach tightened. Their proposed expansion route matched existing emergency corridors almost exactly. Not because they built anything. Because the county already had infrastructure in place. Roads. Gates. Access points. They were wrapping private administration language around public function. I pulled up my own permit package and flipped to maintenance obligations. One line jumped out. Immediately. Transfer of operational authority requires written county approval and owner consent. I looked back at their documents. No approval. No consent. Just diagrams and assumptions. My phone buzzed again. New email. From Diane. One sentence. We are scheduling a field verification tomorrow at 9. Attendance recommended. Attached was a visitor list. Survey coordinator. Community compliance officer. Infrastructure consultant. Estimated duration, 3 hours. I read it twice. Field verification. On my property. I checked the bottom of the attachment. No request for permission. Then I opened the final page and saw they had already assigned themselves temporary site access. I read the visitor list 3 times and then closed the laptop. The ranch office went quiet except for the low hum of the mini fridge and cattle shifting outside. They had scheduled a site visit on private property and written themselves into access authority before anyone said yes. That told me something important. They were acting from process now, not confidence. I printed every attachment they had sent and spread them across the desk. Maintenance plan. Corridor integration. Access framework. Site verification. Every document sounded official. None of them actually granted authority. Midnight came and the air cooled enough to open the windows. Cricket started up in the pasture. I pulled my permit binder from a moving box and found the county access agreement. 8 pages. Dry language. Easy to ignore. But buried in the operational section was exactly what I needed. Any inspection request affecting emergency access infrastructure requires owner authorization or county initiation. I read it twice. Then I opened my laptop again. I did not call a lawyer. I did not write a threat. I made a checklist. Item 1, request authority. Item 2, request recording reference. Item 3, request consent history. Item 4, request access approval. Item 5, request insurance coverage for proposed inspection. Simple. Clean. If they had authority, they could answer. If they could not answer, they would have to improvise. Improvisation leaves fingerprints. At 12:43 a.m. I sent one email to every recipient from their chain. Subject line, documentation request before site entry. I asked for recorded authority over my parcel. Any signed owner agreement. Any county authorization. Any easement assignment. Any active policy permitting site operations. I ended with one sentence. No entry authorized until documents are provided. Then I shut the laptop. No speeches. No warnings. I slept 4 hours. At 8:17 the next morning I was standing at the gate with coffee in one hand and the permit binder in the other. Cold air. Damp gravel. The sky still gray. At 8:54 the first SUV arrived. White. Then another. Then a pickup with measuring poles in the bed. 4 vehicles total. More than their email listed. Doors opened. Clipboards came out. Diane stepped forward carrying a leather folder. She smiled like yesterday never happened. Good morning, Ethan. We received your email. Nobody mentioned the documents. Nobody handed me anything. I stayed inside the gate. Did you bring authority? Diane looked at the survey coordinator. He looked at the compliance officer. Nobody answered immediately. Then the compliance officer handed me a packet. 12 pages stapled together. Fresh print smell. I flipped through them while they waited. Cover page. Procedures. Scope. Liability disclaimer. Proposed route review. No authority. No approval. No recorded instrument. I looked up. You sent 12 pages and skipped the only one I asked for. Nobody spoke for a second. Wind pushed across the pasture. One of the cattle moved closer to the fence. Diane folded her hands and smiled again. Then she said something that changed the entire shape of the fight. We do not need ownership to manage access. The words hung in the cold air longer than they should have. We do not need ownership to manage access. Nobody behind Diane reacted. Not the survey coordinator. Not the compliance officer. Not the man holding measuring poles. That was the strangest part. Nobody looked surprised. Like they had all said that sentence enough times that it felt normal. I kept my hand on the gate latch and looked directly at Diane. Who told you that? Her smile held for 1 second too long. Community infrastructure. Standards allow operational coordination. More soft language. More fog. No answer. I opened my permit binder and flipped to the marked page. Paper moving in the wind. I held it up without crossing the gate. Show me the authority that overrides this. Diane did not even look at it. The survey guy finally stepped forward. He pointed toward the road and spoke like he was explaining weather. Your entrance affects adjacent movement patterns. I nodded once. Then I asked him if he had insurance for entering active agricultural property. He blinked. The compliance officer looked at him. Nobody answered. Small silence. Tiny shift. Then I asked for their county inspection number. Another pause. The survey guy lowered his clipboard. Diane stepped back into control mode. We are not here to debate process. There it was. They wanted compliance without questions. I pressed the intercom release and opened the outer pedestrian gate exactly 6 inches. Not enough to enter. Enough to hand papers through. I passed them a printed copy of my documentation request with a fresh timestamp. Diane took it. Her eyes moved faster than before. Recorded authority. Owner consent. Insurance. Access authorization. Her expression changed almost invisibly at line 4. The compliance officer leaned over to read. The survey guy stopped pretending to study the road. Nobody moved toward the entrance anymore. Wind rolled across the pasture. One of my cattle let out a low call from behind the barn. I folded my arms and waited. Diane handed the pages back to the compliance officer. We will follow up. I nodded. Then today is over. She did not leave immediately. Instead she looked at my gate keypad again. Then at the emergency access sign mounted beside it. Then she asked casually, how often does county emergency traffic use this route? I did not answer. That question was not about roads. That question was about leverage. She looked away first. The vehicles started turning around one at a time. Gravel popped under the tires. But the white SUV stayed parked for another 30 seconds. The survey guy rolled down his window before leaving. He looked embarrassed. You might want to check neighboring parcels. Then he drove off. I stood there until the dust settled. Back inside the office, I opened county parcel maps again and started comparing the names from their expansion documents. 15 minutes later, I found the first match. Then the second. Then the third. Every parcel marked integrated had one thing in common. Every parcel marked integrated had one thing in common. None of them were actually inside Stone Creek boundaries. I sat back in my chair and stared at the map while afternoon light moved across the office floor. 15 parcels. Ranches, small farms. Rural lots. Every one of them touched some kind of existing infrastructure. Access roads. Utility crossings. Emergency routes. They were not collecting neighborhoods. They were collecting control points. I printed the parcel list and started making calls. First owner did not answer. Second owner picked up and sounded cautious until I mentioned Whitaker Land Services. Silence. Then she asked, "Who gave you my number?" She told me they started with maintenance letters. Then came notices about road coordination. Then requests to standardize emergency access. 6 months later she was paying annual fees she never agreed to because she thought somebody else had already approved it. I asked if she signed anything. She said she signed a road participation acknowledgement. My eyes moved to the PDF on my desk. Same language. Participation. Not ownership. Another call. A man farther south laughed when I explained. Then he stopped laughing. He told me they had put survey flags near his gate too. He ignored them. 3 weeks later he received a maintenance assessment. He paid because his wife thought they would block deliveries. I asked who enforced it. He said nobody. They just kept sending cleaner paperwork until it felt official. I ended the call and looked outside. Wind moved through dry grass. The ranch felt bigger now. Quieter. Like I had stepped into something already moving before I arrived. I opened the county portal again and searched Whitaker Land Services. Business registration. Active. Property coordination. Infrastructure consulting. Then one line near the bottom caught my attention. Registered manager, Diane Whitaker. I sat still for several seconds. She was not just HOA president. She was operating both sides. Association and consulting. Community pressure and private paperwork. I kept digging. Public meeting summaries. Old submissions. Corridor review requests. Rural access recommendations. Different names. Same address. Same office suite. The pattern started to form. Every proposal targeted routes someone else already maintained. My phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered. The voice was older this time. Calm. You have been asking questions. I did not speak. He continued. I was on their board 2 years ago. I grabbed a pen. He told me people resisted direct expansion, so they switched language. No annexation. No acquisition. Just access management. Easier to sell. Easier to defend. Then he said something that made me stop writing. Ask for their recorded authority packet. I asked what that meant. He answered immediately. If they have authority, there will be a packet. If they do not, he stopped. Long silence. Then he said, nobody ever asked for it. The call ended. I looked at the stack of documents beside me. My email request from yesterday was still unanswered. Then a new notification appeared on my screen. Subject line, Stone Creek Response Package. The response package arrived as a zip file with 12 PDFs and one scanned cover letter. I downloaded everything and opened the first document. Empty template language. Definitions. Maintenance philosophy. Community goals. The second document was meeting minutes. The third was a draft access policy. None of it mattered. I kept looking for one thing. Recorded authority packet. The phrase the former board member used. By the sixth file, my coffee had gone cold. Outside, the windmill clicked in slow rhythm behind the barn. Then I opened attachment 9. The file name was strange. Legacy Integration Archive. Inside was a checklist. Parcel identification. Corridor classification. Owner communication. Billing activation. Signature verification. The last line was marked optional. I stopped scrolling. Signature verification optional. I sat still for a second and opened the metadata panel. Creation history. Multiple revisions. Different authors. Final editor, Whitaker Land Services. No county references. No recorded documents attached. Just internal workflow. I opened the next file. A sample authority packet. Blank placeholders. Record number pending. Consent pending. Approval pending. They had built an entire system around documents that were never completed. I opened the final attachment. Cover memo. One paragraph. To streamline infrastructure coordination, properties may enter provisional administration pending formal integration review. Provisional. That was the word. Not legal authority. Not ownership. Temporary administration dressed up to feel permanent. I pulled up county records and searched every parcel from their expansion list again. Nothing. No amendments. No recorded consent. No authority packets. I started calling people. One by one. I sent screenshots. Highlighted sections. Parcel comparisons. Nobody argued. Nobody defended the HOA. Long pauses. Then the same reaction over and over. Wait. They never had approval. By evening my inbox started filling. Copies of notices. Old invoices. Survey photos. One owner sent a cancellation letter from 2 years earlier. Another forwarded an email asking them not to contact the county. That one made me lean forward. Not contact the county. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Around sunset my phone rang. Diane. I answered. Her voice stayed controlled. I think there has been a misunderstanding. I looked out at my gate and listened to the cattle moving through dry grass. Then send the recorded authority packet. Silence. 3 seconds. 4. Then she said they were reviewing internal procedures. Not authority. Procedures. I thanked her and ended the call. 10 minutes later another email arrived. Subject line, account status update. I opened it. The dues balance showed 0. Site verification cancelled. Integration suspended. Community review concluded. No apology. No explanation. Just closed. I printed the email and pinned it beside the permit on the office wall. Then I walked outside and looked down the gravel road they thought they could rename. The gate clicked softly. Behind me. And the next morning, the survey flags were gone.